Hi everyone and welcome to episode 35 of the ITSM crowd. Today we're going to be talking about a topic we initially introduced a couple of episodes ago, which is enterprise service management. Enterprise service management is a topic that seems to be getting more and more popular, and today we've got with us some of the authors from the recently published Enterprise Service Management Essentials paper. So the first thing I'm going to do today is ask our guests to introduce themselves. So working from left to right on my screen, Daniel, if you can say hello, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm looking at enterprise service management from a DevOps and Lean point of view and how it goes and impacts the organization in their use of technology.
Marvellous, thank you. And Karen?
Hi, Karen Ferris from Melbourne, Australia, Director at Macanta Consulting. I suppose my feelings or thoughts around enterprise service management is, using service management principles enterprise-wide, and hate to sound like I'm quoting from a book, but to deliver value to the customer at the end of the day. So how can we improve that delivery across the whole of the organisation?
Delivering value to the customer, something we've been talking about for many years, but don't seem to be able to quite get there. Thank you. And Martijn?
Yes, my name is Martin Adams. For me, ESM, the most important part is to indeed also look at it from the customer perspective. What does it mean to the customer? What can the customer actually do when we implement ESM? How do we make their life easier? So that's my perspective on ESM, really.
Thank you very much. And Simon?
Hi, Simon Dorst here from Perth, WA. I come from a traditional IT service management background, and I think ESM is vital because otherwise IT or ITSM will die a slow death if we don't go with the business, if we don't become more agile, if we don't deliver value, all those platitudes, then I don't think there's much of a future there. So ESM is a great thing to jump on board and work with the business together to get that value, come back to value again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And for those of you that are watching this online, we will keep an eye on Twitter. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask the panel, if you use the hashtag ITSM crowd, then we'll pick that up and we'll answer that during today's broadcast as well. So I think Simon, maybe we'll come to you first and just talk about your definition of enterprise service management, because you've just said that if we don't get on board with the business, ITSM is going to die. So what is enterprise service management? Is it the next evolution of IT service management?
I think it's an evolution of the IT organization. So IT service management, IT services, I've been teaching this for longer than I care to remember. We're talking about delivering value to the business so they can deliver the outcomes they want. But that's kind of coming from an age where IT was maybe a bit new and scary and a different organization. And these days, IT is the business. It's part of the business. It's integral to the business. So rather than looking at IT services, we need to look at the business, the enterprise, and the services that they deliver. And there's some good stuff that we've done in ITSM. So it's an evolution. It's a step up. It's a level up. It's integration, all those words around it. It's realizing that IT is not a separate entity that needs to be part of the business. We are a part of the business.
Okay, thank you. So a question then to the rest of the panel. What would enterprise service management look like? If I'm a user in the business, how would I see any difference?
I think from a user perspective and a customer perspective, Claire, I think we should be providing a seamless experience regardless of where the customer or an end user has to go. At the moment, if you're an internal user, you might have the service desk for an IT issue. You've got some other sort of help for something for the facilities. You've got a different number to ring, and you're going to get a different experience whoever you engage. And it's the same for the external customer. We've all had that experience. You ring one department and you get one type of experience. You ring another, or you get passed around. So it's again going back to that value and the outcomes that the customer wants. And I think one thing, and I keep reading about this, that's not new, but it sort of keeps rearing its head, is that the experience from a technology and a platform and tools experience that we have as consumers, we don't have when we go to work. And I think that's part of it as well. It's not all about the tools, but I think the technology is going to have, and the application of that technology is going to have a massive piece to play. Because I think IT and the organisation really needs to step up in terms of its internal provision of services as well.
Yeah, and I think, Martijn, maybe that would be a good question for you, is because you're working in the software space and doing some exciting things. Is this a trend that you're seeing with your customers?
Yes, absolutely, and that's what I try to explain with, I think ESM is very much like the help button for all the employees in the organization. Right now they have perhaps 5 or 6 help buttons, and they're probably not even the same help buttons. One of them is a phone, the other one is an email address, and they all deliver different experiences. And many of those organizations behind all these help buttons are working in a very different way also, and they have to cooperate together in order to deliver a very good experience. And that is indeed, from the software side, we've looked at that very closely and said, okay, we need to provide something, we need to build something that is really so well integrated that it automatically makes sure that all these organizations, all these departments in an organization work in exactly the same way in order to provide that seamless user experience at the end of the customer. And I think that is what we really need in ESM, because if it doesn't become one and the same experience to the employees, then they will always complain about it, and their smartphone will always provide better experience to them than we as an organization would do. So that should be a focus point, definitely.
Thank you. So we've had a discussion on the ITSM crowd before, and we had quite a long discussion about, should we remove the IT from IT service management? Are we just talking about service management here?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we absolutely, if we're going to talk about enterprise service management, then we drop IT altogether, I think. And I think we've got to stop also talking about aligning IT with the business. If you align something, it never meets. We've got to talk about integration. It's an integral part of the organization, as is HR, marketing, learning and development, etc. So
it's interesting that the DevOps movement, one of the books that is now going around is A Seat at the Table by Mark Schwartz, who was the ex-CIO of one of the largest U.S. regulatory agencies, Immigration Services, I believe. And his concept in this is the CIO and his entire organization within 5 years will no longer exist. The enterprise will want to manage technology to do what they need to do, and they're not going to go to a department to do that. They're going to go and use technology to provide their capability and upskill their people and attract their customers and attract shareholder value and all the other things. And they're not going to want to go to the department to do this. It's going to become a commodity. And if you have any type of IT, and Clara will love this, it'll be that thin layer of integration that's providing that service across. I wonder what I'm talking about. That looks at, from a SIAM point of view or a management point of view, the technology, but no more than that. So,
but that layer
in that case, then, guys, is there a difference between DevOps and enterprise service management's goals? Are they both the same?
Sorry, interesting question, Daniel. No one jumps in, so I'll go in. I think with all of these thoughts and ideas that we're all on the same line of best practices and other terms around it, so that there's a lot of good things that DevOps wants to achieve. I mean, ultimately, it's a cultural movement of thinking around Dev and Ops and how it works together. And that fits perfectly in even with traditional IT service management. So with enterprise service management, we should definitely embrace DevOps. We should use agile techniques in there, all the good stuff that we've got, but put it integrated with the business to deliver that value, and not just be, as Karen put, next to the business, delivering to the business, but actually be a part of it. So yes, I think there's a large similarity. I wouldn't say they're the same with DevOps and enterprise service management from a cultural, from a thought perspective.
Do you think they can take advantage of each other? I mean, if the goal really is to get service management, technology management aligned across, not aligned, but integrated into a part of the business, or whatever words you want to use, can these movements finally come together in such a way that it makes sense? Are suppliers and certifications the issue?
Sorry, I'll jump in. I don't think suppliers or certifications are ever the issue. Suppliers are very keen to grow. There may be some questions about the motives around there. Certifications are there. I think the big thing with enterprise service management is kind of, again, extrapolating the big thing with service management, is the business involvement, is the true culture. And that's why I like your concept about DevOps, of putting this enterprise service management in the organization and making it work, giving it the right resources and the right attention. If the CIO changes, who is going to take that role, and do they have the right information? So I think the big challenge about enterprise service management is that governance control, that enterprise commitment to it. Otherwise it becomes us, and I don't think that's a bad thing to start with, but in a central service desk, great start, and it's wonderful for the experience of people, and tool vendors will sell a lot of enterprise service management tools through it. But I don't think that is the essence of enterprise service management, where we want to get the whole service cycle happening.
But how would you see DevOps in the other organizations? Because now we're still looking at it from the IT perspective. But if we make it enterprise service management, then it should just as well be the facilities department, the HR department, etc. And probably they're already doing a much better job in the concept of DevOps than we at IT are doing. Oh, yes.
And now I think it's back to what Karen was saying, which is, do you have a development of an idea or request or concept or thing that you want to do in your organization? And how do you make that go live? And how do you make that concept or idea or process improvement or whatever go live? And how do you help your people work better? And then you go and apply technology against it. And I think that DevOps now has moved into that phase, which is exactly what ESM is trying to say. How can you take advantage of technology and the practices that we've gone and created that do work, and then apply that across the organization so that you can help them do better, faster, safer?
So who should be driving ESM? Because one of the things that concerns me about this is that in my experience of working in IT, sometimes IT has a tendency to think it knows better than the business, and I can see this in some organisations being portrayed as, look, we're perfect in IT, we've got our processes in order, now you should be working like us, which is not going to be a sell that's going to deliver any organisational change. So who's driving this? Where's it coming from? And will it just be a bottom-up IT trying to push ways of working out into the rest of the business?
From experience, I can say that it does work like that. But well, most times I see it a little bit different. It's not really that IT goes out and says, look how good we are and you should be doing the same. But it's more that people at the HR department, people at other departments see how well it works at IT, what a nice self-service portal they have, and it all looks very nice. And then they think, hey, we're doing all of that with email. And shouldn't we be doing something similar? And then they ask IT if they can get on board and do the same thing. From experience, that's what I see with most customers, how it starts, how they grow from IT into other departments. If it's the best possible way for the end result, I'm not sure. Perhaps there are better ways, and some people may have other experiences. But what I've seen so far, I think 95% of the implementations have started like that.
Sorry, Karen, you go.
I agree. I think just echoing what's said, and I think we sort of touched on this on the last session we had, that, you know, it can't be an IT initiative and driven as one. It's got to be an enterprise initiative, you know, that IT has got, you know, input to from what it's learned. But there's other parts of the organization, they may not call it service management, but that's what they're doing. So it needs to be enterprise driven and picking the best of breed and pulling it together and saying, well, IT did it this way, facilities have been doing it this way with these results, HR have been doing it this way, and pulling the best of everything. So it's not an IT solution, an HR solution, or facilities or whatever, or marketing and comms. Because unless we get all those people feeling that they've got a part to play and can say, you know, here's my ideas, if we exclude any of them from an organizational change management perspective, it's going to be a nightmare. So it's a bit like, you know, design thinking, you know, they're all the customers of the solution at the end of the day. So they need to be part of identifying the problem and creating the solution and prototyping, testing, feedback loops and all that sort of thing. So it has to be everybody involved.
Simon, were you going to add something then?
Yeah, I was just unmuting myself. Yes, and look, I agree with all of that. I think that's one of the threats, because at the moment, enterprise service management seems to focus around a centralized tool and experience on support and operations, which is great. That's something that IT has been very good at, so we probably have something to offer to the enterprise for that. But if we truly want to talk about enterprise service management, it does need to be driven by the business, and it needs to look beyond those operational contact points. That's an easy win, that's low-hanging fruit, good start point, but essentially we want to get that whole service lifecycle or service, whatever you want to call it, captured from a business perspective, from an enterprise perspective. It has to have governance around it. Whether that's a CIO role for the future, I'm not sure, but it has to come from the business, and it needs to look beyond just an easy tool. Well, easy is relative. A tool solution, a point solution for a service desk.
That's a really interesting point, Simon, and I think that's worth expanding on. So a lot of the discussion around enterprise service management has been very operational. It has been extending access to support and request management processes across the business. How does it expand? What else should we be considering as part of our enterprise service management thinking?
I'd like to see a start around the project and portfolio area, because that's where you can truly get technology integrated into initiatives at a portfolio strategic level, apply, as we talked about, the DevOps and Agile principles along the way, and truly make it a business project rather than a business project with an IT component or an IT project with a business focus. But so I think that might be somewhere to look, organizations that have a structured project organization within themselves or a culture around it, to see if they can really get an enterprise process and management around those things.
I'd agree, and if you can take it all the way to the service strategy level, where when designing the service, that you can already make sure that all these organizations, all these departments work together in the design of their services, then I think you'll automatically see it trickle down into the operations and everywhere where it needs to be.
And I think that's an excellent point, because if you look at the books of ITIL, it doesn't necessarily say this has to be done by IT. You have a strategy, You want to design against that strategy. You want to transition that strategy. You want to run against that strategy, and you want to improve that strategy. Now, if you want to use technology to do that, that's great. If you don't want to use technology to do that, that's great. But you need to be able to consider all of this stuff and the different ways that you're going to be doing it. And that's where I think that we can contribute from an IT service management point of view toward allowing the organization to think about what it is that they're doing rationally, and then take advantage of what we've, done over the last quarter century to help them go into, super mode, ESM mode, DevOps mode, whatever marketing term you want to put around it. But Claire brings up an interesting question. Who is the governance of this? Is it the overall individual, the CEO, that owns this? And then he, asks his management team to help him, so top down, or is it a bottom up thing that takes over? I'm not sure. I don't think there's a one thing fits all.
There's not going to be a one change fits all, but since you mentioned the ITIL word, I desperately try to avoid it so far. But yes, what have we learned over the last 25 years? That we're doing operations, the easy bit. So we're really good at incident management and service desk, bit of change, bit of configuration management or SACM now. What is lacking even in ITSM is often that top-down strategic governance, and we're talking about that. So, and I see now the same thing happening with ESM. It is a buzzword that we sell operational solutions with. There is an opportunity here to start from that strategic governance point of view, if the business sees that, and it has to be driven. It's an enterprise management framework, practice, culture, whatever you want to call it in there. So it would have to sit with the board of a company to say, this is what we want to do, and from there on allocate it. So I would like to see it be done top down, but I kind of have a bit of a fear that we're going for the operational solutions and call it ESM and call it a day and look for the next big thing.
I'm almost nervous to ask, but I think this is a question that is worth asking. Is this digital transformation?
No. Digital transformation's been happening forever. It's just, for me, it's just like we're talking about transformation. I mean, yeah, there might be subtle differences that we need to do things more rapidly. We need to do things, we need to be more agile, be more nimble, be more responsive. And, in a digital era, things naturally move faster and faster, and we need to react accordingly. But I'm getting a bit, I could say, fed up of hearing people talk about, we're going through a digital transformation. Really? When did that start? A couple of months ago. Really? Where have you been up to then? So, yeah.
I agree with Karen. I mean, people start saying, who owns the onboarding process? Well, HR does. Well, why is our onboarding process so bad? Well, because IT can't get their act together. Well, hold on. Let's go back to the first question. Who owns the onboarding process? HR does. Well, then how does technology go and help HR get the onboarding process to be better? And that's when you start getting ESM or DevOps or, this thing to go live into other parts of the organization by looking at the processes that the business wants to do, the ways that they want to work, and then improving them. And I think that's what we're trying to get to now, which maybe we haven't been able to do before, and maybe now we can.
I think the speed of change is an important factor in there. So digital transformation, yeah, what is it? Haven't we been doing it? I think these days it's visible, it's quite fast, hence also the agile movement and things like that. And that is something that the business sees, that they need to be able to move faster and quicker. And that is something where IT can help them. So no, this is not digital transformation. I'm not sure that I know what digital transformation is exactly. But it is something, I think, a sign of the times is that everything is moving faster, the technology is moving faster, the business is moving faster. We haven't even talked about innovation, which is a different area in there as well. And I think those are all great opportunities to say, let's get IT with the business, so not aligned, but integrated with the business, call it enterprise service management, use the DevOps principles, use good old ITIL service management for operations, use your agile where it fits as well. Really start with what do we want to achieve from a business perspective? What is the business portfolio? What are the business services?
I have to say, with this being episode 35 of the ITSM crowd, looking back across the history of the ITSM crowd, many of the episodes seem to have been structured around, this is the new thing in IT, what is it, and what should people be worried about? We do seem to have a tendency, certainly in the technology world, to come up with new expressions and then say that this is the thing that's going to deliver value to the business. And it makes me laugh coming back to Karen and organisational change management. It doesn't matter what you call it, enterprise service management, DevOps, agile, whatever. If you don't get the organisational change management bit right, then the rest of it's going to fail, isn't it, Karen?
Absolutely. It's all about the people, the people, the people. So whatever you're trying to change, whether it's a culture, a process, a platform, tools, any ways of working. And if we're talking about ESM, we're talking enterprise-wide, changing people from one way of working to another, and that comes back to organizational change, helping people transition, understanding why we're changing, what's in it for me, what's it going to look like, and surfacing that resistance. I just wanted to mention, just based on what we were just talking about, the new shiny thing, we all start talking about it. I read a CIO article recently that said how CIOs need to lead digital transformations, and it was saying things like, be visible, communicate, be transparent. And I'm like, what's that got to do with digital transformation? It's the things any leader demonstrates. It was just like, yeah.
Yeah, and if you need a bit of guidance on organisational change management, then we have Karen wrote a little book, which is truly excellent. So, Balanced Diversity, a Portfolio Approach to Organisational Change. I would strongly recommend that. That's on my desk at the moment as part of my reading materials. So we're coming to the end of our time now, and that's been a really illuminating chat for me. I think we've got a little bit deeper into enterprise service management, but I'm going to ask you to finish up with just a top tip or a word of advice or a recommendation for anybody who's watching this or catching up on YouTube. So Daniel, if you want to kick us off with your final thought, please.
At some point in time, technology has to be used in a way that removes obstacles and achieves goals for an organization. So go find an obstacle, go find a goal from some department area, sit down with them. Don't try to give them a technology solution, but understand them, and then come back away from that, and then go look to see, what you have to do. I mean, that was one of the main lessons from the Phoenix Project or the DevOps Handbook or whatever you'd like to, say. And as you start doing that, people are going to start listening to you. And as they start listening to you, they're going to want you to come help them. And that now becomes your feedback and improvement cycle. And to me, that's, no matter what you then want to call it, whether you want to call it DT or you want to call it ESM or you want to call it DevOps or ITSM or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's use technology to help the organization.
Brilliant. Absolutely true. Thank you. Karen?
I think if we were serious about doing enterprise service management, and again, whatever you want to call it, we'll have to truly break down those silos. As I mentioned before, it can't be an IT solution or an HR solution or a marketing solution. This has to be an enterprise or organizational wide solution. So we've got to break down those barriers, and the solution has to be owned by all of those areas. They have to be able to play a part and come up with what is the problem we're trying to solve, and what are some of the ideas that all the players can put into the mixing pot, and surface the good one, which might turn out to be something that IT were doing or facilities were doing or HR were doing, but it's a best of breed solution so that everyone's got buy-in. You know, I had my chance to say something, I had a chance to throw my ideas. This is what's surfaced. Now let's test it. It's not set in concrete. Let's just give it a test. Does everyone like it? What's the feedback? We need to fix it up. And that's, you know, iteration. It sounds like I'm talking about continual service improvement, don't I?
Yeah, absolutely, but very, very true. Thank you, Karen. Martijn.
Yes, and I think let's not forget for whom we're doing it. So I would say just open your door every now and then, grab a few of your colleagues from different departments and ask them how it feels to get support from the enterprise organization. Ask them before, ask them after you've taken some initiatives, and let's see how they feel that it's working. Are they happy with it? Do they feel that it has improved? Because I'm sure that they'll come up with a lot of ideas and a lot of these roadblocks that you could potentially take away and didn't even think about yet. So I'd say open your door and talk with the ones who we are doing this for.
Thank you. Feedback and iterations in your work. That sounds like something. Yep. Simon, if you want to wrap us up, please.
I would like to say, if you think that ESM is a solution, are you sure you know what the problem is? So it's got to be enterprise, and who owns the problem's got to be the business. If they're not asking for it, if they're not looking for solutions, then ESM is not the answer there. There's probably other issues in there. So yeah, before you're thinking of ESM, make sure you know what the business problem is you're trying to solve, and make sure you have business buy-in.
Wise words. And we'll wrap it up there. I'd like to say thank you so much to our panel for joining us today. So Daniel, Karen, Martijn, Simon, thank you so much for your time. If you want to read the Enterprise Service Management Essentials white paper, you can download that for free from scopism.com, and we'll put that link up on Twitter as well later today, so you can get that, grab yourself a copy. So thank you very much for that. Our next episode of the ITSM Crowd will be in August, and we are joined by guests including Rob England, the IT skeptic, to talk about what change management looks like in a DevOps world. So that should be a really, really good one. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.